Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I introduced myself to you at jury selection, but again, my name is Jennifer Baxter, and I'm one of the assistant district attorneys here in Whitfield County. The case that you're being asked to hear today is the State of Georgia versus Stephen Lamar Foster. Mr. Foster is charged with one count of driving under the influence of alcohol. The state would expect to show that on September the 23rd of 2017, at approximately 2:20 in the morning, the defendant was operating a vehicle on Walnut Avenue at a time when his blood alcohol was over the maximum limit of 0.08. From my perspective, this is a pretty straightforward case. On September the 23rd, Officer Justin Smith of the Dalton Police Department was on patrol. At that time, Mr. Smith was still in training. He was going through the cadet program at Dalton Police Department, so he had with him a training officer, Detective John Edwards. Officer Smith was pretty late into his training. He completed most of the program, so at this point, Detective Edwards is just sort of there as backup. He's there to watch, help, answer questions, but Officer Smith is sort of doing his own thing at this point. He made a traffic stop on a vehicle driven by the defendant in this case for not having his headlights on. Again, this is about 2:20 in the morning, past the time we should have our headlights on, so he traffic stopped that vehicle. During the course of speaking with the defendant, in this case, Mr. Foster, he began to believe that he might be under the influence of alcohol, and Officer Smith will talk to you about the reasons that he came to that conclusion. He asked Mr. Foster to step out of the vehicle and do what we call standard field sobriety testing. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that generally. At that point, Mr. Foster asked for a breathalyzer test. Well, we don't have breathalyzers anymore. That's kind of like saying Xerox machine. It's an old term. What we use now is the alka sensor, but it's the same general idea. It's a preliminary breath test used on the side of the road. Mr. Foster blew twice into that machine. Once was successful, one was not. Officer Smith then placed Mr. Foster under arrest for DUI. When he was placed under arrest for DUI, Mr. Foster was read his Miranda warnings and the Georgia implied consent notice, which you're going to hear more about as we go on today. And then he asked to be taken to Hamilton Medical Center for a blood test. And the officers complied with that request. They took him up to Hamilton Medical Center, where a crime lab blood kit was drawn. The crime lab, as well as the officers are going to talk to you about what a crime lab blood test is and how that's processed. That test is then sent to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab.